Thanks, Eileen.
Erin, do you want to kick it off though?
Sure, yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm Erin Hathaway, and we'll be talking to you a lot about our work and how we got here and everything else. But I just want to say that I really value and appreciate the work of health education. I have dabbled in that over the years, a long time ago, and really believe in what you do. And I it's unfortunate the situation that everyone's in right now. So, really hopeful that this can spark some interest and ideas and questions from you all. And we're really happy to spend this time with you and answer anything you want to learn more about.
Great. Well, I can jump in and I think we'll do some more intros of ourselves in a little bit too. But same, I'm Jen. Erin and I are work partners. We've been partners for a few years now. But I've spent sort of the last, I don't know, 15 years working in food security and traveling around the state, meeting with a lot of food banks, food pantries, and originally worked for Northwest Harvest, but years ago pivoted to doing this independent consulting piece, which I've loved and will tell you more about. But again, just want to echo what Erin said that, we're really grateful to be here with all of you today. And also just really bummed about the circumstances that are happening across the nation right now. So thank you for being here with us. And we just feel lucky to be here with you and want to just start to get a sense of like what all you might want out of today so that we have slides and talking points, but then we can tailor them as well. So Erin, maybe I'll turn it back to you.
I was needing to find my mute button. Yeah, so if everyone wants to just say hi in the chat, and we encourage you to ask any questions that you have there too. We'll try to stop periodically and take a look at what questions come up. Um, but yeah, I think we both find a lot of joy in our work, and we're excited to talk with you more about how we got there. So let me remember to drive my own slides here. Um, when we spoke with Anna and Eileen about what to prepare for you today, these were some of the things that seemed like they might fit the bill. So we'll kind of just give you an overview of where we started, how we got into this work, and talk a little bit about all of the relationships that have sustained our work and why we think that's a really important thing to center in doing freelance consulting. Um, there's some sort of very subjective pros and cons that we can offer from our point of view about why we like this work and why it's challenging sometimes. Those things may strike chords with you, or you may see them in a different way too. Everybody's got their own sort of risk tolerance threshold and preferences for how you go about your work. So we'll talk through some of that. We did sort of poll a few of our other consultant colleagues and friends to get some input on what it's like for them also, so you have more than just our perspectives. And then we've got a bit of sort of the like basics of how to think about starting a business, where to find more information. That's the more technical side of things. And then the rest of our time, we'll just open up to any questions that you have if we haven't answered them already. So, where are we? Here we go. I've gotten so spoiled lately that, okay, here we go. I've had someone else to drive the slides for me. All right. So, I'm really curious just to know what specific questions you have and what you want to learn more about. I think for me, remembering consultants that I had worked with when I had a more standard 9 to 5 job in the nonprofit space, it was sort of mystifying, like how they did what they did, and you know, how they kept their work flowing, how they got new contracts, what inspired them to get started. So those are the kinds of things that came to mind for me and Jen too. Jen, if you don't mind just keeping an eye on the chat too while I'm chatting away here, hop in and let me know if there's anything people want to know about specifically. But for us, I think Jen mentioned her background. I think you know, she's got a long track record in working in food security. For me, my subject matter most recently was more around like youth in foster care and homeless youth. We both held leadership positions internal to nonprofits, and had sort of a pretty good network of colleagues built up in our fields. And then I think the inspiration for this was really personal in a lot of ways. We both ended up doing this, starting consulting around the early phases of COVID. Jen had kids starting kindergarten in 2020. I had a 2-year-old that year. So there were a lot of reasons why we wanted to have a different kind of work-life balance, but also we wanted to be continuing to exercise and grow our professional skills and deepen our areas of expertise in nonprofit leadership. Um, and so it was really attractive to think about going out on our own. I would say recommendations for all of you, if you're interested in this, really start by thinking about the unique skills and different areas of expertise that you hold and your contacts that you have in the field, and where you see that there are opportunities or where help is needed in your communities. Really trying to anticipate as SNAP gets cut and other social service programs adjacent to it start to lose funding, where can you help fill those gaps by continuing the work in an independent way? That would be where I would start brainstorming in your shoes. I'll pause for just a second and see if there's any questions we want to address right away, or if there's anything you'd like to add, Jen.
In terms of adding, I just would say, actually, Erin and I said it as a joke that we wanted to consult for like a good 15 years before we actually got up the guts to do it. So we'll talk about this a little bit later, but a big part of the work is just building confidence and making the leap. And so that was sort of originally how we'd always wanted to do it, but again, similarly, just didn't know exactly where to start and how to jump in. In terms of questions, thanks, Holly, for just putting some comments in the chat about just, and Erin, she just said, like, whatever we want to share is great. But if there's any other questions you all have, nothing's too small or big, just put it in there or ask out loud, and we'll just try to tackle them all because there is a lot to think about as we go through this.
Great. And just a couple more anecdotes too. I think Jen was really the brave one who started first and had, I think, at least one contract offered to her to go out on her own. And I was still in a full-time job prior to that. I had a new baby at home. And I started out just sort of dipping my toe in and moonlighting a bit for Jen when she got to a point where she had more work than she could handle with one person. So that was sort of our testing period for about 3 or 4 months. And then we really found that we liked working together. We liked the added sort of partnership elements of it. We'll talk more later about, some of the cons can be it may be sort of isolating to work fully for yourself or on your own. And it's been a really strong model for us to have this partnership. So that's a bit of a picture to paint you of how we got started. We kind of took it slow, took it a project in a month at a time, and then really got going. I think the other place where we really started again was thinking about our relationships and the people that we've gotten to know in our professional lives. So again, if I'm framing this as recommendations to you all, think about the colleagues that you know and who know you and who really seems to receive your work well and value it and see it and integrate it into what they're doing. I'm saying this without a full picture of how you do your work or where you do your work, but really just start by thinking about your network. And those would be the people that I would reach out to first to kind of offer yourself as exploring consulting or interested in contract-based work. I saw a few of the questions that Anna had forwarded were along those lines, like what's the etiquette around reaching out to people? How do I know when it's okay to ask? I think it's always okay to ask. I'm imagining that you've got a sort of sympathetic network right now. I know that might vary and look different in different places, but um, folks, I'm sure, have been updated on what's happening with your program. And so it shouldn't be a surprise to talk about what you're exploring next. And I would just start and see if there's any openings or interest or opportunities where they might be like, yes, 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 we need your help and we want more of this. Um, I would say also, if you get a few steps further in those conversations, as I was framing my thoughts for this, I think these four next words, empathy, creativity, efficiency, and flexibility, are really things that we try to uphold in our practice. Like empathy, it comes in a lot of different ways, but trying to understand more about what your clients or potential clients are needing or going through. If you have some insight from having worked adjacent to them before, bring that forward. Creativity, like we really are pretty scrappy and pretty willing to just try new things, teach ourselves new things, apply new skills or tools, which we'll talk more about too. Um, you have to kind of try to be efficient. You know, there are different ways that we structure our contracts. It can be hourly, it can be a flat rate fee. Happy to answer questions about that kind of stuff too. But I think you want to try to do the right level of work for your clients. So it's different in that way than a full-time salaried position where you're kind of just always working. In this way, I think it allows you to be a little bit more discreet about this is my project. These are the hours that I've agreed to in a scope. And that's really all you have to give it, which can be quite freeing. And also flexible to know that you might have one idea, your client might have another. You might miss each other for a little while, especially when you're in sort of a discovery phase of getting to know what they want and need. But you will come around to it, and you have to be willing to meet them where they're at and meet their needs as best you can. I would say other general sort of things about relationships, like you and your clients, once you get into the work. I think it's normal to feel kind of vulnerable starting out. I remember really feeling that way and had the benefit of Jen's like a little bit lead start ahead of me for her to reassure me about like, nope, this is just how it goes when you take on a new client and you're getting to know them and you're kind of a little bit like fumbling in the dark sometimes. I would say if you don't have an opportunity to have a wonderful work partner like I do, then just find other ways to get support that you need to be building up your confidence. Um, I don't know, maybe there are some of you who have already done freelance or contract-based work before, or there may be elements of your work history that sort of mirror this in different ways. But I think that's been a big theme for us too, is just sort of reclaiming that confidence and that independence. And we've been able to give that to each other, but there are other ways you could achieve that too. Professional work groups or friends or family or other loved ones that you really can call on to talk you through these times as you're getting started. And then this was kind of fun when we were pulling our information together. I went back and looked at all the contracts that Jen and I have secured together in our work. And I would say a healthy like 70% has been generated by personal referrals. So that's why I say to really start with who you know and who knows you, because I do think a lot of it ends up coming from word of mouth. And when I think back to, again, other consultants I've worked with over the years, I think that's really true across different types of contract-based work. I think that's how you get more work is people refer you on to the next or rehire you again. And more than half of our clients have renewed contracts once we've started working with them. Any questions there?
I have a quick question. My name's Holly.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for presenting this topic. I find it fascinating, and like I said in the chat, I don't really have much of a concept of what consultants do and the whole world of it. So just to wrap my brain around it more. So basically, like a consultant could do a whole big range of things, right? Just depending on what they and the client want to do. So it could be one small little like, oh, we're going to install water fountains at this school to like, we're going to run a whole nutrition program. It could just be a range of whatever the client and you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think, um, for us, we've also spent some time in the last 3 going on 4 years really honing and identifying like what are our shared areas of expertise. And so once you can really say that out loud, I think you can start to market yourself in that way. I saw Anna sent a list of sort of the professional competencies that all of you have already started to assess and identify. So you would kind of begin with that as a menu, I would think, to say, like, here are some of the things I can offer. Do you need help in these areas? And then a lot of the work that Jen and I do, people hire us for a period of time or a set budget when they do need to fill that kind of staffing gap. They don't want to hire a full-time employee. They don't have the budget for it, or there's not a long-term need, but they have a specific project or something they need help with, and they just need that little bit of extra capacity or outside expertise to really achieve the work they want to do. So, yeah, again, without knowing sort of the ins and outs of your field, that's kind of how I would approach it is where are their needs? Where do I have skills that can match that? And who can I present those opportunities to? Of
Great, thank you.
course. All right.
And you can just stay on that side for a second too, if you want. And yeah, Holly, it's funny because it feels a little like nebulous. You're like, what? And that's, I think Erin and I thought that before we did this. We're like, what do consultants do? And sometimes even people tell me now they do consulting. I'm like what kind? Like, what do you do? So it is tricky. I think this is where you all get to really decide what you want to do, right? Like if you are like, I loved my work in Snap It and I am fully dedicated to like this specific sector of work and like finding projects that align with it, great. Like you could go out there and you could brand and market yourself to be like, this is my field and like this is what I do and I'm the top of it or whatever. And I know Erin and I know colleagues that are like, we exclusively work in like Medicaid contracts and government stuff, for example. Or you could just say like, I want to work for myself. I want to do this now and I'm open to like anything. And I think personally, like my advice is like for us too at the beginning, I think we were lucky. I will say that because there was a lot of COVID relief funds flowing through. So it was a different time and I will acknowledge that, but like it was a time where I started out certainly being like scrappier, like being like, oh, okay, you need a report? Sure, I can do that. Or you need someone to like project manage this water fountain thing? I can do that. So really just like you can basically make it as small or as big as you want it to be. And I think that's part of it. I think like before we move on from the relationships piece, I would say for me, self-promotion was like one of the hardest things. Like I hated having to like even ask for funding for like fundraisers and stuff like that, right? And now I'm trying to ask for someone to hire me, and that was really hard. And so I would just say like that is a hurdle to get over for me. Hopefully not for all of you, but here are some like things that I feel like I did, and I wish I had known too, is like just ask, ask, ask. Everybody's expecting, especially you all, to be at a point where you're like, I'm figuring out my next steps. Like, could we meet for coffee? On LinkedIn, put the like open to work thing on there. Like everybody you've worked with before you leave your role, send them an email and this is one thing I did do, which is ultimately what I think led to the next, like to getting my first few contracts is I just said, I'm going to be consulting. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it work. Here's my personal info. I'm going to connect with you on LinkedIn, but like keep me in mind. And that's sort of how things came around. And I think that that's sort of the first part is just tell everybody you're doing it. And you don't, even if you don't know what it is, you don't have to have your niche, you don't have to have your marketing materials, you just need to like go for it, right? So I would say, yeah, tell everyone you want to do it and you're doing it. And if you don't, that's fine. It's okay. Ask for like coffees, put it in your emails to everybody. And then I mean, I suggest starting out just like being scrappy and just like getting all the projects you can. Because one thing we'll talk about is how fun this work is. And then the other thing is sometimes I do say this to myself still is like fake it till you make it, you know? And I know we use that in all sorts of our lives, but this is one too where I really had to learn to just be really confident out loud. And Erin and I talk about this all the time where you're like, sure, I can do that. Absolutely, I can do that. And then you have to go back and to your office or your house office in our case and just be like, oh my gosh, I just said I could do this, but how do I do it? So that's where I think is a hard part of the work, but also just like know, like Erin said, you can do this, you have all these skills, and also you all have, like, I hope you all stay in touch. Like you have these group of people that you can bounce ideas off of. So those would be sort of my reflections there. And then I think you also just don't have to do as much like branding and marketing as you think. You know, you don't have to have it all figured out. Just go for it. Okay, so with that, maybe we'll switch over to the pros and cons of our work. There are so many in both the pro and the con list that, and we want to sort of just be upfront about what those are for us. I think they're different for everybody, right? So like to me, and as Erin mentioned, like flexibility and balance have been so great. Like when we started this, I was literally playing like tech assistant to my 2 kindergartners who were starting like online kindergarten. So like I could work in like 5 or 10 minute spurts and then have to stop and do something else. So like I love having the flexibility and balance that this has brought us. And like I try to work like kid school hours. I try to keep it to my own, but you also have to like set your own boundaries and parameters because it's something you could do all the time. Like you could just work after dinner, you could work in the morning, you could do what you want. So that can be both a pro and a con. I think one challenge starting off, I'm not doing this organized. Sorry, Erin. She had all of our pros set out here and all of our cons, and I'm just jumping around. But I think one con that comes up that we just need to be really frank about is just you don't know that you're going to continue to have a strong pipeline of work, right? So every consultant I talk to, and even though Erin and I have done this now for like 5+ years, I still have moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to have enough work in January or in March to keep this going? So I think the biggest challenge for me, and I think others, is just having the like security and like faith that you're going to keep getting work and make this work out. So like, yes, you get flexibility and balance, but also there's always this part in my mind that's like, am I going to have enough work later on? And that, and again, is also the predictability. Like you can predict your own schedule. You have a lot more freedom to like say when deadlines are and when you're going to do your work, which is great. But also it's not predictable to know that you're going to have funding or support like in the spring, for example. So that's hard. I think motivation is on our con list because there are times where you're like really love a project and want to dig into it. And then there's times where it's really hard. It's not that different than the work you all do now. There's just parts of it we love and parts we don't. But I would say it can be a little bit harder to motivate yourself to do some things because you just don't have the people around you pushing for it all the time. But there's ways to counterbalance that for sure. And I think with that, you have to come in with like the motivation and willingness to just like hit the ground running and like be like, you got to do every step of the process. So like before someone was filing your tax, you're like, I mean, you file your own taxes, but if someone was like taking out your social security and like doing all of these things as part of the work, like maybe your health insurance, all of that. And now you're like, oh, you're going to just do it all. So you got to be ready to like every little thing, whether it's small or big, it's like all on you, which is both good and bad. But I think that can be scary starting out. But the things that we love the most, I think, are like creativity, independence, variety. Like I love, and Erin does too, like we love learning about new programs, but like meeting new people, like digging deep into new topics that we wouldn't have gotten to do otherwise. And I can say that that's something that other consultants I think really like too. So if you're someone who's like, I love just like taking on a project and figuring it out and learning new things over like short stints and periods of time, like this is a really good work for you. Oh, Angela, I saw your comment. Thank you. I know it's hard to like ground all of our work, but some projects that we currently do. Okay, well, I think we're all over the map, but today Erin and I are putting together like a landscape analysis for a multi-service organization here in King County. And they're trying to decide what they want to do with the future of their food program. So like today we're working on like pulling together for them just basic what information that might feel a little basic to you all, but like what is the current situation in terms of food insecurity? What are the potential ramifications of things that are coming down the pipeline with cuts to SNAP and Medicaid? What does that mean? This organization focuses on the Jewish population, so we've spent some time with them prior, and I think this is to Erin's point that sometimes contracts will end up getting more over time, but we've spent some time with them trying to figure out how do they really target the Orthodox Jew population here, because there's a very high stigma around asking for help in that community. And so we've done that, and now we're trying to say, okay, what is your next step for food? Like, here's your landscape analysis, here's your focus population, and then let's work on the vision. So we'll probably, our next steps are to meet with them and talk about like what are their resources, and then ask them a bunch of questions that'll help come and clarify their vision. Some other projects that we've done a lot of stuff around board development and strategy, helping new nonprofits get up and going. That's been really fun. And what are some of our other current, coalitions? You could talk about that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that is a piece of work that I think a lot of different community-based organizations need and want help with in times where public funding starts to shrink. I think people want to try to work in partnership, and they understand that there's some element of competing for funding. But they also want to try to pool their power and influence. So we have, I think, three, maybe more at times, coalitions that we've supported to do different types of advocacy work together, collective action type work. And our role is usually more to be the coordinators that schedule and run meetings and plan agendas and bring together all the partners to talk about their expertise and make decisions or come to some sort of consensus at different points in their processes. So I could imagine different kinds of groups like that in your field too. Facilitation is often something that consultants get hired for, and that I think is sort of a big umbrella term for what we do there. Um, and it helps if you have some expertise in the work that that group might be doing. So in our case, I have some background in legislative advocacy work from prior roles. So I can kind of speak the language and help guide this group. They might need a different kind of expert or a lobbyist that they would hire to work in partnership with us if they need to go further or deeper into that. Um, that's another example. And then I would say, yeah, so a lot of like board development, startup help, these types of reports, like Jen was describing, a lot of times that's a discrete project that someone will want a freelancer to do for them. Um, and then we also do a fair amount of like coaching for emerging leaders in our field. I don't know what the corollary would be there for you all, but there is a realm of consulting where you are kind of giving like professional advice and support as an outsider, and that could be something that people in your world might need as well.
Um, a couple other things we've done are people have hired us to do specific programs. So they've said like, we want to start an online ordering system at our food pantry. Can you help us do that? Or we want to scale a project. Like, how do we go about doing that? So that's an example too. I would say that is sort of a wide range, but again, it's like a lot of this like is creative and continues to evolve. So like Erin said, we've started doing more coaching, and that's because people have hired us to help them with like their program strategy. And then by getting to know people through building on their programs with them, we get to know people as leaders and then as people. And so then we end up sort of pivoting off into just providing general coaching support, which has been a really fun part of the work. And that brings me to like two things is like, actually, it's a real privilege to get to do this work. One really cool thing about being a consultant is that people can share with you things that they don't feel comfortable sharing internally, right? So like, and that's where a lot of like the emerging leader coaching has come in, where people like have to show up at work and be like, I know what I'm doing. I got this. Like, I'm the leader and I'm doing all of this, but like inwardly, and I don't know if I've felt this way, I don't know if any of you have, but inwardly you're like, what am I doing? I don't know how to do this. And so being a consultant is kind of special because people can tell you things. They can tell you when they're struggling with different parts of their teams or others, and you get to be a sounding board for people. And so I think like we just love that because it's a special thing and something that we both love doing. But B, it's like a place that more work can come from, because once you build these like thoughtful and genuine relationships with people, like you can find more ways to support them. So I think as you all are embarking on like next steps, is a lot of times a lot of the projects and things we do are also sometimes driven by us because you're getting to know an organization. Like right now, you know so many organizations in your sphere that you know actually what their needs are, right? So like you can be like, oh, I know you need these things, you just don't have the bandwidth to do it. Or how about we try this to counteract that? And so a lot of the work can also be driven by you helping them identify needs, right? So you're not just waiting for someone to say, oh, I need help with this, let me find someone. You're also saying, I see where you could use support doing this, and here are ways that I can help you. So it can be more of like a two-way communication than just like waiting for someone to hire you for something. So I would say that for sure. That made me think of something else, but I just spaced on it, so I'll have to come back to it. But yeah, I hope that's helpful as well. So let's see. So those are sort of some of the pros and cons. I do think, and we'll talk about tools in a little bit, like not only do you not have like full security in terms of like where your next work is always going to come from, it's hard to know like how much you will make. So I can say like in 5+ years of doing this, there's years that I've made more than I did in my previous roles. And then there's years where I've made a little bit less. And it's just like, you just have to know that going into it and whether or not that's a good fit for you or you're like, your situation. And I wish that wasn't the case, but that's just sort of how it is. So that is the struggle that I think that we come up with, and the biggest thing to just be real about. We did ask some of our other like friends and colleagues who have started consulting specifically in the last like well, actually this is like the last 2 to 3 years, just because we were trying to like get more information about what other people experience. We can send you these slides, or I know Anna mentioned she can post them, so you can read through this later. But I do think that there's a few trends that have pulled up from what our two friends here, we have two different sides, but also others say. And one of them is like really the first, like being confident enough to make the leap into consulting is a big step. And so like, while I wish circumstances were different right now, and our administration was different, like you all actually are in a spot where you can be like, we're gonna, like I'm doing this and I'm doing this like today. And so I think, it took Erin and I 15 years of joking about it to make it happen. So I hope that there's a silver lining in that if you want to do this, you can just like go forth right now and do it. A lot of the other things that people mentioned are how much they love it. I thought it was fun that I gave our friends a bunch of different, aren't friends, colleagues, but like questions to answer, and they both really wanted to answer what is the most rewarding part about working for nonprofits. And so I really thought that was a good highlight in terms of like that everyone finds this work really rewarding. And then I think a lot of the challenges that people have come across are more of like sort of like the tactical operational challenges of figuring out this work. Like, how do I incorporate? Am I like a solo practitioner or an LLC or things? And we'll talk about this in a minute, but you just need to know to like withhold tax, ahead of time, and that sort of thing. So I think we'll just speed through these, but I just wanted to say that there's a lot of like trends, that others see as well. But before we go to questions, I did just want to do some like nuts and bolts stuff of things that might be helpful for you all too. So we can send this out as well, but just to answer, like there's a whole lot of like starting your own business stuff out there. There's a lot of support, but also I think that Washington Department of Revenue has like the best things for how to get started in terms of opening your own business and like how you want to set up your structure. When I started, I was a sole practitioner. I did it really actually like mostly under my like social security number and then like reported sort of my own taxes. But as Erin and I grew in this work and came together, we decided to do our own LLC. So there is some like information there you would want to dig into. And then you'll also want to just check where you live because like in Seattle, where we both are, there's additional like licenses and taxes that we pay. And so your county or city might have those as well. So you'd want to just check that. You can actually find that also in Department of Revenue. So it's not too hard to find, but if you want to get started, I would just like glance through these things. That said, don't let it be a barrier. Like if someone's willing to start tomorrow with you, like just be like, sure, all right, we got this. And you can come back and figure out some of this stuff later. I would say there's a bunch of helpful tools we use. A lot of them are free. Like when we started this, we didn't really want to spend money on very much. So like we use a ton of free tools. Like we still use like Google Suite. We use Canva. We were talking about that to design things, LinkedIn for messaging. One thing that we like really love is we use Clockify to like look at and manage our time because one thing is that a lot of our contracts now are on time. So like this is a big shift from our normal jobs before where you're like we showed up at 8 to 5 or whatever. Like now I'm like charging something like is it a 5-minute conversation I had? Then I want to track that because you would be really surprised when you track your time. Things that sometimes like when a project I don't want to do, I'll feel like I spend hours on, but I really just spent 54 minutes on. Or if you don't like check your, if you're not tracking all your conversations by the end of the week, that's like an hour of time that you would have been able to charge for. So like I love Clockify. And then there's some other tools as you get like further into this that you might want to refer back to. So again, we'll send that out to you. But the big thing here and things that our friends have mentioned too is just the self-employment and taxing thing. Taxes work differently. So we estimate we withhold, and I think the like common saying is 30 to 35% of what we make so that we can pay for our own sort of like our own taxes, our own social security and all of that. So you'd want to set your hourly rates or your contract rates, knowing that you're going to need to like set aside 30 to 35% of the work. One thing I like that our friends pointed out is just like, don't be afraid to ask for more money and to just know that like you are worth it. So don't like undercut yourself. Like a friend and a colleague was like, well, I used to make, she's a lot younger. She was like, I used to make like $30 an hour. So I'm doing it at 40. And I was like, but then you're losing money. So really think about like what you need to sustain this work. And like just ask everybody. You can ask us if you get into this, you can ask your friends, but like really just also like be transparent about what you charge and others charge so that you can like set your rates at a good amount and that you're able to sustain the work. So those things are really important. I think that's it for this. I mean, as you get into it more, having an accountant or a bookkeeper is really helpful, but
Yeah.
until like just go to town and don't let any of this stuff hold you back. You can figure this all out retroactively. We did a lot. There's like grace periods. If you're not paying your like taxes every quarter, it's okay. Like you can just go and figure this stuff out along the way.
Yep. Yeah, just to underscore, I think it's helpful to talk to a bookkeeper. We don't have one that we use all the time. We just paid for a couple meetings up front to make sure we set everything up correctly, and then we've been able to maintain it on our own. But that is good to have the reassurance of someone who knows the ins and outs, who can make sure that you've got it all in a good place to begin. QuickBooks Online, some of you may already be using it for personal finances or others. They make it ridiculously easy to use, even for small businesses. So
Great. Well, I think just turn it all to you for questions, or comments. I know you're sharing a lot of really good comments with each other in the chat, which is really great too. So what questions do you all have from us?
I think this has all been so much to like absorb. So thank you so much. It's all such great information. I think a question I would have is, I think you kind of mentioned this earlier too, but like, I kind of don't know what I want to do next exactly. Like what, I don't have a one particular thing that's like, oh, that's the one thing or, one area that I would want to consult in or whatever. But I think you kind of mentioned just kind of jumping in and seeing what sticks almost, right? Would you, I mean, I don't know, do you have any advice for that sort of situation if you're not quite sure where you want to aim for? Just yeah, I don't know. Any advice?
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think we're still, as people, always trying to figure out what we want to do next, right? And so I think my advice would be like, if you're interested in consulting or working for yourself or trying it out, just like don't overthink it. Just go for it. And then I think I would, if I had the time, I would just find people that I wanted to have coffee with. I know one of our friends will like, she's got 3 coffee dates a week trying to meet with as many people as possible to get hers going. But you don't have to go to that extent, but I would just say like, to anyone you're interested in what they do, like go for a walk or coffee and ask them about it. And also ask if there's ways that you could get involved.
totally. And I think that's one of the things, again, you have to be willing to like take the leap, but it can be really freeing to work for yourself because you get to define then what is your job, what is your work, what is your expertise. And I would say that this is the work situation in my career up to this point that has felt like I'm the most uh of a human being or myself in because of that element of like getting to define it as I go. Um and yeah, it can also be a way to like Jen was saying, when you start, you might want to take on projects that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily consider or wouldn't have been part of your job in the past. But it can be a way to get you through, to earn you some funds, to get you some new exposure and experience. And then as you progress in different projects, you start to learn that way. What's your favorite thing? What do you really like? What do you want to do more of? Where do you want to continue to grow? And again, it feels to me doing that to be like a lot more natural and organic than sort of one title, one set of skills, one job description, you know?
I thought I could jump in and answer your questions, Angela. But for all of you to keep thinking about more questions. So Angela just asked in the chat, our hourly rate range, how did we decide it? And then do we do grant writing for people? So in the reverse order, we have done grant writing before. I think if you all are skilled grant writers, that's great. And definitely try to do that. I would want to say too that I know some consultants are really good at like finding grants, or if you get online in like the Washington state, different departments will have opportunities you can sign up for that will come across the screen, like across your email. I don't know why I say screen. It's not like they pop up, they don't follow you. But there's some that will like come up and we'll get emails about those. Aaron, I don't know if you know the one we signed up for, if you want to put it in the chat, but we didn't get one, but we went after one that way with someone else. So like there are ways you can find things. So you can find grants and bring them to people. You can grant write for them and have them pay you for that ahead of time, ideally. And then you can also sign up like on LinkedIn and then, but specifically through like the government, state government, to just get advice of things. So our hourly rate, it depends. Usually it depends on the size of our clients. So our clients who are the biggest, I think right now we're actually pretty high. So we're up to like 195 with them an hour. But when I started this work, I think I did my first project at like 85 an hour for a couple months. And then I was like, look, we proved that this works. Now I want like to do it at 100. And then I've like incrementally increased. That said, Aaron and I have definitely done like passion projects where we're like, okay, we will do this for free, or we'll do it for $50 an hour. And to the extent that we're able, we try to make it more of a sliding scale. So if a place can pay us at that level, like the one we wrote to the state, we would even have them pay us higher. But that just sort of helps for us offset the programs that we really want to help that can't pay that. There are two, I would say, like, most people I know, I'd say their rates are between like 100 and I've heard of people as high as like 250. But that seems high to just start at. That would be for me. But again, I just told you I'm really bad at self-promoting. So know your worth. You go for whatever you want. I would say one thing that we've learned is we have contracts that are by the hour, and then we have contracts that are like an estimate and sort of a retainer. Sometimes it's worked in our benefit where we've actually been like pretty fast about something and able to do it under the amount. And that's been like a nice plus for us. But a lot of times it's very hard to estimate how much time a project's going to take, especially with a new client. So there are times where we've underestimated. So I think if I was to stick advice to what I just said, I would say like start every project with someone maybe as hourly, especially as you're getting going. And then maybe think about expanding to a retainer sort of, or like service kind of model. Like I have a friend who does a lot of HR stuff. So she can say like, oh, you want this like intro pack of policies? You could do it. I'll do that for, I don't know what, but like X amount of dollars. So those are some ways to do that. Yeah, what else? Is that helpful, Angela? Is there anything else you want me to expand on there?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just reading the chat too. Any other questions, or Aaron, go ahead.
Oh, just to say, I was trying to find the right link for that system. It's the Washington Electronic Business Solution Webs. The link I shared might be from one of the recent calls for proposals that has come through. So ignore the specifics of that one if it's not something that's interesting to you about domestic marketing and promotion of Washington red raspberries. But that should get you near the system that you want. There is a listserv that you can sign up for that will send you more emails than you ever want or need about any topics of interest to you. So you can select like, I want to do health education work or healthcare work more broadly, or things related to food and nutrition. And it will give you whatever frequency, daily or weekly, listserv email updates that you want with openings from the state where they're looking for proposals or bids for either individual projects or organizations to bid on different pieces of work that they want to contract out for. So that's what that system is. I think it's a good one to look at. I think it can be hard to break into those contracts from our experience and other people we know, but it's totally worth familiarizing yourselves and seeing if there are ones that might actually be the perfect fit.
Quick question. Thank you both so much for being here, and it's nice to see you. And it's funny that I'm going to ask this question because um, being someone that often is so like excited about trying new things and helping people and doing those things, how do you balance that moment of like what helped you transition from I was in a position where I'm paid to be that person. And now I have to ask people to pay me to do that, which thank you for being here and helping us. We asked you to come share your I'm doing we did exactly what I'm talking about, and thank you. But how did you transition between those two?
I can jump in, Jen. For me, I guess it's back to that piece I was saying before about it feeling like a lot more natural and human. Like I think I've always had that kind of instinct and personality. And now it's like I that curiosity and self-motivation and all of those things are actually put to like a good use. Whereas in jobs before, I think the tendency I might have had would be to like probably do more than I needed to for people or volunteer a lot in different workplaces. And I think that this now, like, because there are agreed terms to contracts and scopes of work, like that gives me a lot more clarity and or my time is really just to be there for somebody and to coach them and to kind of give them like professional therapy in a way. Like there's a positive outlet and a use for that tendency that I find I have. So I actually think that that part of the transition was easier and more of a relief in some ways almost. Um, because those skills are really valuable to our clients in a different way than they expect from their full-time employees, if that makes sense.
And that made me think of something I was going to say earlier. But before I do, Jen, are you also thinking about how do you just not volunteer your time to do all these fun things and accidentally be like, now I'm full of hours and I'm not getting paid? Yeah. Well, I'd like to think that Erin and I have figured that out, but even today we're still working on flyers for like school volunteer stuff. Like it's a hard balance. And I don't know if I have a right answer to that. Other than I think it's really fine to just also if you're out there saying like, I want to help, I want to do these things, I'm looking for work, to just be really clear, like, as I get started in the next 3 months, I might be able to do volunteer things. And then I'll need it to be like paid or something like that. But I think it's okay to just be really clear about it. I do think actually it's a skill I've learned more through consulting, is to be very like a little bit more direct and like upfront about stuff like that, because it is just such a natural, or for me, a natural tendency too. As a fun side note, sometimes I put stuff into ChatGPT and be like, make this a little bit more direct, and then it'll come back to me and help me, so like it's a silly thing, but it is helpful for me, like to help do boundaries. So I hope that's helpful. Another thing is just like, oh, you go first, Erin, while I think about this thought.
Oh no, I was gonna give an example of so our time was paid at a different rate through like a state contract that came out to provide some technical assistance a couple years ago. I think as a lot of programs were still transitioning out of COVID times into like back into the real world, whatever that means. So we had a client that we got connected to through that. So our time was free to them, but we were paid through this other contract. And then they wanted to rehire us for something else. And we were nervous in the beginning about saying like, and now that we volunteered for you before, we need to be paid for our time. But it was actually really easy because they had already seen like what we could do and they wanted that. So I think that's part of the like, don't undervalue or undersell yourself too. Like, remember that probably your contract is still a fraction of what they pay for a full-time position or a longer length project or another piece of work. Like you are still adding tremendous value to them, full stop. And like it's a deal in a way for them, even if it feels like a lot to ask for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and two other things that are adjacent to that, Jen, is one I wanted to say along the way is, if any of you are like us and struggle with like, are we really the experts? Can we do this, right? Sometimes people are just paying you to do something because they don't have the bandwidth to do it. So like that's something we remind ourselves of. We always do our best and like really strive to do as well as we can, but it's a good reminder that like people aren't paying us to like solve food insecurity. Like they just also need help. And that's helpful in and of itself. Like you don't have to be an expert 100% of the time. The other thing I was thinking about earlier, but Jen, your question made me think about is one thing that we both love about this work is I actually feel like I can give so much more to like our clients and people we work with, whether it's coaching or otherwise, because you're not bogged down with the dynamics that you are in a regular job, especially one with a lot of different like federal components that you have to work within. And so like the fact that we're not managing a team of people or that no one's over us saying like you can do this or you can't do that, really I think has freed up our like emotional energy to give back in a way that feels like really nice. So I would just say that that is a big plus too.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love all this discussion that's happening so much. And thank you, Erin and Jen, so much for taking the time to be with us, obviously sharing a lot of information that's really generating a lot of conversation and thought and, I say hope in our group. I do want to recognize that we're kind of at the end of our scheduled time. So if anyone needs to head out to whatever your next thing is, please do that, including you, Erin and Jen. I'm happy to hang out a little bit longer if folks have other stuff that they want to share or ask. And I think otherwise, thank you. Just want to wrap up by saying thank you so much for joining us, for donating your time to help us all out in this way, and for, sharing your experience, and especially for like the realness that came with it. It's really helpful to hear from like real people outside that we, know, some of us know and love already, and that we also, can kind of trust as like, oh, these folks have similar values to most of our group and our SNAP Ed community.
Thank you, Anna. I just put this in the chat, but you all can reach out at any point. You'll have our emails. We would do that for anybody. So if you in a week or 5 months are like, I want to make this leap, can we talk? Just let us know. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And thanks for the work you have done. It means
yes.
much to our
Yeah.
communities.
Yeah. Yeah. And take care as you are on your next adventures for sure.
Mhm.
And Jen, we worked together. So, there you are. You're moving on my screen. Do you remember? And
I
I'm
do.
remember your last name before that. And I was like, oh,
It was